Well, today I thought it would be kind of fun to make a toaster for the Dollhouse kitchen. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. So off camera I cut some chipboard, and what I will have, I'll try to remember to take a picture of the label. This is like a lightweight cardboard. I picked it up at, I think, Hobby Lobby quite some time ago, but I'm sure they still have it. It's made by the people that make the silhouette cutters, smart cutters, and it's really useful. And I've been cleaning boxes out, so I found it the other day. So what I did, I cut 6 pieces of it that are a 1/2 inch by 5/8 of an inch. The sizes will be in the blog post. And I am going to start by gluing these together in pairs. So we'll have 3 pieces that are double thickness of this chipboard. And I see I wasn't totally accurate on my cutting, so I'm gonna have to double check my sizes. That's okay, because we're not actually going to see this. This is internal structure. It's not going to, we're not really going to see it. It's going to be covered. But it is hard to cut these perfectly this small. So that's okay. We'll trim till we get the right size. So what I've done here, I'm using tacky glue. You want a nice thick tacky glue, or thick really thick glue, because the thicker the glue, the less apt you are to get a lot of warping. And now these pieces that need to dry completely, and then we'll come back, we'll measure them, we'll trim them to make sure we have the right size, and then we can move on to the next step in our toaster. Alright, so the glue on these has dried, and I'm going to go through and kind of line them up. I trimmed them off a little bit earlier, but I've got them all so they're pretty much the same size. This one's got a little bit odd shape, but that's fine. So now I have cut 4 pieces of 1/8 by 1/8 inch strip wood. And I've cut them oversized because it's going to be a lot easier. I tried cutting them earlier when I did one of these up to make sure it was going to work, kind of work the kinks out of the process. I tried cutting them to size, and it was really hard to get everything lined up. So I'm just dipping them in some tacky glue and then lining them up so they're lined up on the top. And make sure the 1/2 inch is going up and down, and the 5/8 is the side to side. And we're going to do this on 2 of these pieces. I want to make sure that they are lined up at the very end of the pieces of board. And then, if they're a little rough, that's okay. We can sand it off after everything is dry. All right, now this glue needs to dry also. The glue, each step the glue needs to dry pretty much all the way before we go to the next step on this, because we want to make sure everything is lined up correctly. So when this glue is dry, I'll be back and we'll go on to our next step. All right, this glue has dried overnight, so now I'm going to use my easy cutter. You can use any safe method to cut, and I'm just going to cut even with the bottom of that. And I find it's a good idea to run that over a piece of sandpaper just to make sure everything is nice and smooth before we go to our next step. And I did one off camera. Don't remember if I just mentioned that. It's early in the morning. I'm not really awake yet. And don't worry if the wood splits. That's fine at this point. We're we're going to put some glue on those. And it's okay if the inside is messy. We're not really going to see, this is just going to kind of be a, you know, empty void. Then I'm going to take the piece that's just the 2 layers of chipboard. I'm going to line those up. And it's all right if the inside is not level on the bottom. Make sure that the side that you're going to use as the top, which is not the side I just cut, that's the side I lined up earlier when I glued the sticks on. Make sure I get this in the right direction. And now we have our toaster is starting to look kind of like a toaster. So now this needs to dry. Kind of squiggle it around a little bit. It helps that glue to, as long as you line it back up, it helps that glue to get set firmly. So we want that glue to dry really well before we go on to our next step. So I'm going to let it dry and then I'll be right back. All right, my glue has set up quite well now. So now it's time to start cover. We're going to cover this with some black paper. And what I have is, well, it's from this sheet of paper here. And this is, it's almost like a printer paper weight, but it's a colored paper and it's a nice, rich, dark black. We're actually going to paint over this and cover it all up, but this is going to be our base. It's going to even out our surface and give us a nice surface to work with. So I started out, I cut some pieces of paper that are just bigger than my toaster, than the ends of my toaster here. Because what I want to do is I want to get some more glue, because I forgot to get my glue out. I want to glue this onto, let's get a fresh toothpick. I want to glue one of those onto each end. And I want the edges to, I'm going to fold this over the edges. I'll cut it even with the bottom. I don't want it to stick a long ways. I don't need it to stick a long ways past on the top. But I want it to stick over enough that I can glue it. Make a good crease there. Take a small, and don't worry about glue fingerprints on this at this point. Like I said, we're going to paint over it. But this will just give us a nice base color. But I want to cover up all of this before I get what is going to show on here. And by folding this around the ends, it will cover the corners up really well and kind of seal them so they don't show. So I'm going to do this end, this side. And as usual, I have cat hair on my work table. Sure that's pulled in nice and tight to your toaster, and then you don't even need to wait for this to dry. So I'm going to do the other end the same exact way. I'm going to let this glue set up for 10-15 minutes just so it's nice and stable and not so sticky, and then I'll come back and we'll cover the other direction. All right, now I have a strip of that same black paper, and I've cut it 5/8 of an inch wide, which is the width of our toaster. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it around the toaster. I'm going to go up one side, across the top, and down the other side. And I will cut it off even with the bottom. Try and actually get this lined up on this first side. but this is just going to give us a nicer, smoother surface to work with. Make sure it comes to the bottom of your toaster, although this will be covered. This side is going to be covered. And don't worry about those holes. We're going to recut them in just a little bit. We're going to let this glue set up so this doesn't shift around, and then we're going to go in and cut our slits open again. This off. And let's let that glue, and let's see, since I went, oh, this paper was evidently just a little bit wide. Oops, and I've got an air bubble there. There we go. All right, we are going to, I've got glue all over everything. We're going to let this paper, this glue dry under this paper for just a few minutes so that it gets set up, and then I'll come back and we'll cut the top open and we will coat this in a coat of black paint. All right, now take a very fine knife, like an X-Acto knife. And you do need the really sharp blade, the really pointed blade. Go. Same thing on the other slit. And I'm doing my best to stay under camera, but I also need to get this where I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to leave some scraps down inside. It's okay. The next step, we are going to, let's see, stick this onto, do I have something to stick this onto? Yeah. One of my craft sticks that I paint on top of. Just using some poster tack. This way I've got a handle and it makes it so much easier. And I'm just using some black craft paint. And since there's absolutely nothing I'm worried about getting onto my brush, I'm just going to use it straight out of the paint jar lid. I cover all these surfaces, and once this paint is dry, I will come back and we will go on to our next step. All right, as I was going through my stash the other day, I found a small piece of this stainless steel contact paper. I looked it up, you can still get it, and I decided to use that on here because I love the finish it gives. And I cut a 1/2 inch strip, that way I'll have a little bit on each end. I'm going to center it. Now, in playing around with this, I did notice it's not sticking as well as I would like. So I'm going to do something I see a lot of card makers do when I watch card making videos. And that is when they put something like this contact paper that's got a self-stick back, and they want to make sure it's going to stick, they actually use some liquid glue behind it. So I've got some tacky glue there. I'm going to go start at the bottom, go around the top and down the other side. So the ends will remain black, and then we'll have this stainless steel color on the sides and the top. And as usual with this, the hardest part is getting the paper to peel. So do your best to center this and get it going straight, because it will show if you get it crooked. I'm not worried about having my end at the bottom though, because I can trim it. Okay, now let's put some glue up here. Again, we are going to use the knife. Once this glue has time to set up, we're going to use the knife and we are going to cut away the excess the same way we did with that black paper. But I found that when I did this, especially up here where it's not making 100% contact because it has the holes, it just, on my one I made up as a sample for myself to make sure this was going to work, it just didn't hold as well as I would have liked. It bubbled on the corner and it kind of bubbled around the holes in the top, and I think by gluing it down it's going to be much better. Now we are going to put a coat of Mod Podge on the black again, so I'm not worried about getting glue out from underneath. Now make sure that you've got good contact going around those corners. And let's cut this off even. Let's see, this is crooked. Fiddle around a little bit. This is the time to fiddle with it, is before that glue and the backing sets up. Come on. There we go. Now, I'm going to give that glue some time to set up. Then I'll come back, we'll cut out the top. In the meantime, let's create a few pieces that we are going to need. So, I have another piece of, our chipboard, and I have a 1/4 inch hole punch, just your standard hole punch. And I have a toothpick that I've been cutting little pieces off of. So I'm going to cut a very short piece of toothpick. And I do want a point of a toothpick. And I forgot to get one out, so I'll do. And I lost that, so I'll have to get another piece of that. Hold on. Let's do this so that it doesn't fly halfway across the universe. There we go. It's a very small piece, and that's what I want. All right. We're going to take this black, or this little short piece of toothpick that we cut off, and we are going to mount it on one end. I'm actually going to need 2 of those. I'm going to mount that one vertically. And we're going to take this round and we're going to glue it right there. I'm basing this on my toaster, and this is what my toaster has, so, and it's one of my favorite features of the toaster, so we're going to do that. We are going to need another short piece. And this we want kind of centered as best we can. Yeah. This one's going to go horizontally on the end. And you could add more details or fewer details. It's up to you. And this little bit is meant to be your temperature gauge, your temperature setting. Come on. I just knocked that off. I should be doing this separate, but I'm trying to get done so I can have this video ready for you guys. Come on. All right, I'm going to neaten that up off camera, but you get the idea. So we're going to let all this glue dry, and then I'll be back. All right, our glue's had plenty of time to set up, so now I'm going to go in and cut. Even gluing this, you can see it doesn't attach super well on the top. You just have to be patient. So I'm going to turn the camera off and I'm going to work on this. Since this is the part that's going to show, I want to have this up where I can see what I'm doing better. I'm just going to use this finger knife from Fiskars and I'm going to cut that loose. A regular X-Acto knife will also work just fine, so I'll be right back. All right, that's all cut back now. So now we're going to use some black, more black paint, and we're going to paint over our little details we added earlier. Now, I didn't add these before I painted the first time because when I tried that before, I ended up having spots I couldn't cover because of glue. Whoops. Go. So now this paint needs to dry, and then we can add a cord and a bottom to this, and we're almost done. All right, let's create a quick little electric cord to go onto our toaster. So what I have here is 2 strands of just some black embroidery floss. And embroidery floss, if you aren't familiar with it, it's very inexpensive. You can get it at most craft stores. And there's 6 strands. I pulled off 2 of them for this. So we are going to, at one end, I'm dipping my finger into some Mod Podge off camera. We're going to use the Mod Podge later anyway, so I'm just going to use that and coat a length of this. Now what that's going to do is going to stiffen it up. Now I'm hoping I'm staying under camera. And I have a very tiny, tiny black seed bead here. And we will see if I can chase this around and let's cut a nice, there. There, that's what I needed to do. Let's get that onto there. Now, I want to cut this off past where I put Mod Podge on, because I want the end to not be Mod Podge yet. I want to separate the ends. This is obviously an optional step. Now, I'm going to take some tacky glue. And I'm going to put a little drop of tacky glue at that location. Just enough to hold that. Now, I'm sticking to myself. I have another piece of the same chipboard. This is just a really tiny piece. I'm going to cut this down to about there. Go to the end of your toaster that has that round thing, not the end that has the switch and the handle, but it has this round piece. And we are going to get out more glue. I've already got glue paper on there because I messed up a step on this. So ignore the black paper that's kind of sort of peeled off. Now, I'm going to put this on, and I want that to be coming out of the center of my toaster. And we don't want this to go all the way to the edges. I cut this the size of the bottom and then I just trim back on all sides. There. Now, I am going to let that glue dry. Once that's dry, we'll come back, we'll touch up the paint, and then we can finish this up. All right, now that our glue has dried, we're going to touch up the paint. Oops. On this little bit we put on. Now you could obviously do your toaster in a different color than black. I'm just kind of patterning mine after my real one. But toasters come in all different colors. Well, I'll get this off camera. I'll do a little bit better job, but I want to show you the other thing I'm going to do. I have my silver paint here, and I'm actually just going to grab a toothpick. And I'm going to apply some silver paint to that bit of embroidery floss that sticks out. So I'm going to finish up. I'm going to touch up all my black paint, make sure everything is nice and coated, and then I'm going to let that dry. And when that's dry, I'll come back and we'll go on to our finishing of our toaster. All right, so I have my toaster stuck to my craft stick with a piece of poster tack. My camera battery decided to die on me, so I didn't realize I wasn't recording. And I'm just going to coat all the black parts of the toaster with some satin Mod Podge. I'm going to let this dry, and when it's dry, I'll come back and we will do any cleaning up that needs to be done and see how our toaster looks. All right, our Mod Podge has had time to dry, and I kind of experimented on this side. I've got some spots where I have a little bit of probably glue from my fingers, and I've got some isopropyl alcohol. This is 70%. Now, I actually prefer 99 or 100% for craft cleanup, but I don't have any. This is all I've got, and it's working okay. So what I'm going to do is get some of this, saturate the end of a Q-tip / cotton swab, whatever you call them where you live, and just use that to clean up any glue that is on there now. And that is now finished. All right, we have a completed toaster for the Dollhouse kitchen. And this little thing on the end, in case you hadn't figured out, is to wrap the cord around, just like my real toaster has. I hope you've enjoyed today's project. If you did, hit the like button, leave me a comment. What things would you like to see in future tutorials that you want to make for your dollhouse? Let me know. I'll work them into the schedule. Be sure and check the blog post for any pictures and links, my ideas, all that good stuff. If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you to hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.